Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's review, we are taking a look at the ROC3 from Innova Discs. Let's begin by taking a look at the profile and the feel of the ROC3. Now, the ROC3 does not have the highest shoulder, but it does have a gradual incline to the middle of the flight plate, giving it a slight dome. Also worth noting, this is a mid-range that does have a good prominent bead to it. And when it comes to feel, because the ROC3 has that slight amount of dome, it really does fill my backhand grip. But don't worry, when it comes to forehand, because the plastic types do have a little bit of gumminess to them in most of them, you know, even with forehand, I can manipulate the flight plate enough to get a comfortable forehand grip. However, Champion was the stiffest and also pretty slick, especially when wet, versus the DX. That is very tacky, very stiff. It is a great option when dealing with wet or humid conditions. For the flight numbers, the ROC3 is a speed 5, glide 4, turn 0, and a fade of 3. Then depending on the plastic, I'd say that definitely holds true, but as you'll see later on in the video, some plastics do tend to be quite a bit straighter, and I would recommend more for beginning or slower arm speed players. And I'll go into more detail about how the different plastic types affect the flight of the ROC3 a little bit later on in the video. But overall for me, particularly with this Metal Flake ROC3, it is going to be very straight when I throw it flat, and then just as it slows down in the later, probably third of the flight, it's going to have a pretty nice finish at the very end. And when thrown on hyzer, I mean, that's just exactly what it's going to do. It's going to hold the hyzer the entire way, very torque resistant. I don't have to worry about it flipping up and turning over at all. It's just going to hold that nice arcing hyzer. But then once you start throwing it on those anhyzer lines, you know, it's torque resistant, but it will hold the line a little bit, just get a nice little meandering, gentle turn as it holds that anhyzer line before stabling up about halfway through the flight, and then it will try to fight back, and depending on how much height you give it, if you give it a lot of height, it will fully fight its way back, but if you don't give it a lot of height, if you throw it low, it may level itself out, but won't have enough time to fully hyzer out. And even though I mentioned earlier that the ROC3 has a good amount of torque resistance, when it comes to forehand, as you start amping up that torque, it starts to get a little bit more and more squirrely and starts to turn quite a bit easier. So when it comes to, say, forehand, this is going to be more of a touch forehanding mid-range, not something to quite be used in the wind. When it comes to lower speeds, backhand, I would definitely suggest this as a nice wind-fighting mid-range, at least those kind of mild to medium winds up to like 10 miles an hour. But when you start getting a lot more torque into it, as you're going to see, like this forehand is thrown at about 50% power on a hyzer, it flips up to flat and then has a nice overstable finish. But once start putting more torque into it and start getting that forehand a little bit faster, it flips up right away and then starts to turn over. So again, more for those kind of touch forehanding shots. And that's why you see very fast arms with a lot of torque on their backhand are able to use the ROC3 as a controlled turnover mid-range. I mentioned earlier when thrown on a hyzer, the ROC3 is able to hold that hyzer the entire way of the flight, and this hole is a perfect example. Just have to hit that gap on a hyzer angle, it is not going to deviate, it is going to hold it, making it very predictable. This hole, you do have that gap right off the tee pad that you have to hit, and with the ROC3, because of the torque resistance that it has, just throw it on a slight anhyzer line, get it through the gap, and you don't have to worry about it turning over too much. It's going to level itself out, and depending on the height, will either give you a forward skip or a nice hyzer finish. And this is a good example of what the ROC3 is going to do when you put a little bit extra torque into it. This is with a forehand, and as you can see, it is perfect for those touch flex shots when you need to get around something, but still know it's going to hyzer back at the very end of the flight. So earlier in the video, I promised you guys that we were going to take a look at the different plastic types of the ROC3, and my golly, the ROC3 comes in a lot of different plastics. In fact, that's probably not even all of them, as there's probably quite a few limited edition runs. However, if you want a ROC3 that is a little bit more torque resistant, better in the wind, better with even forehand torque, then you want to go with the Halo ROC3. This thing is a very beefy boy. It is something that I can definitely trust on windy days or to hold a hyzer around a corner. Now, if you're looking for a rock that's still going to have decent amount of torque resistance but holds straight longer, then the Champion is a very good option. It's going to hold the flight characteristics very well, but it's workable on a lot of different lines. It can hold a hyzer, but it's also a disc that you can throw on a slight anhyzer line. It's going to hold it before the last third of the flight, and then it will fight out and give you a pretty decent hyzer finish. Now, if you're wanting a much straighter flight, getting a little bit of turn in the mid-flight, and even holding turnovers, the DX ROC3 is perfect. It really just holds the line you put it on, but then at the very end of the flight, it does still have a sneaky amount of stability, so it's even good for just those slight hyzer shots. Additionally, like the DX ROC3, the Mic Pro ROC3, which are very hard to find these days, is another very straight option with just a subtle fade. This is one I like to throw on just either flat or slight anhyzer, and it's just going to hold the angle. Now, it is worth noting that the Mic Pro and the DX ROC3 are going to season in very quickly, making them the perfect complement to their premium plastic counterparts. Now let's go back to the field and really see the differences in their flight characteristics. As you can see, the Mic Pro starts out straight, gets a little meandering turn in the mid-flight, before just at the very end of the flight has just the slightest baby hyzers, versus the DX, again, straight, a little bit of turn, and a bit harder of a fade. I was actually really surprised how much of a late finish the DX ROC3 has, but being a baseline plastic, again, it's going to lose that very quickly. The Champion is kind of right in the middle. It has good torque resistance, it checks up, still wants to fight forward a little bit, and still having a decent amount of a finish, making it good for those mild headwinds. The Metal Flake Champion definitely checks up a little bit sooner than the Champion, again better for slightly windier days. And then you have the Halo, which is just a torque resistant beast. That is the one that you are going to want to be throwing on forehand. It's the one you're going to want to throw on the windier days. That thing, it's not quite the most like overstable disc you're going to be able to find, but it still works very well in that overstable mid-range slot. And as you're seeing, the ROC3 has a lot of versatility to it because it comes in so many different plastic types. If you go to a store and just purchase a bunch of ROC3s just straight off the shelf, you're going to be able to hit a large variety of different shot shapes with those ROC3s. The ROC3 is going to be able to hit your straight to slight turnover shots, as well as your straight to overstable slots. Now, yes, it won't be the most overstable mid-range in your bag or the most understable, but you still get a wide variety of shots, and that versatility is what I really like about the ROC3 and would recommend to players. Because of all those different plastic types, you are going to find the ROC3 that works best for your game. So that is all for the ROC3. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you're not a subscriber, please be sure to subscribe and smash that like button. It's just 2 simple clicks for you, but it is huge for the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to try the ROC3 for yourself, be sure to visit GreatLakesDisc.com and use the code LEFTY at checkout to save yourself 10%. You're saving yourself money and you're helping out the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And also down in the comments, let me know what discs you want me to review for the rest of 2024 going into 2025. Till the next one, keep banging chains.